Welcome back to Buy or Sell, the series where you pitch me your predictions for the theme park world, and I either buy or sell them and explain why. If you want your idea considered for the next video, leave a comment below starting with buy or sell. In this episode, we look at Knoebels' plans for their 100th anniversary, what Lakemont Park is going to do with the world's oldest coaster, and which, if either, new coaster will be open with Cedar Point for 2025. This is Buy or Sell, episode 35. Let's start with Quinton Major. Alpenfury will win the Golden Ticket Award for Best New Coaster 2025. Alpenfury is the 9-in-version premier launch coaster coming to Canada's Wonderland, and there's no doubt this will be a contender. But we do have to consider its competition. 2025 is going to be especially stacked. All those 2024 coasters that never open will be in the mix. That being said, I really don't think any of the holdovers have a chance. Siren's Curse might be awesome, but you also got Circuit Breaker at Codaland. I don't know how you give it to one but not the other. Rapterra could be a contender, but that's going to be a relatively short launched wing coaster. And then you have all those coasters at Six Flags Qiddiya, and even if those deserve to win, nobody's going to ride them. There's no way the Golden Ticket voters pick one of those, unless they just give it to Falcon's Flight based on stats and POVs. Alpenfury's biggest competition will be Stardust Racers, the dueling mock rides launch coasters opening with Epic Universe. I think that might win Best New Attraction, but it might be too mild compared to Alpenfury. Therefore, I'm buying that Alpenfury will take home the Golden Ticket for Best New Ride 2025. This is a very America-centric vote, but Canada is close enough, so it counts. Teddy Godelski. Knoebels gets a new coaster for his 100th anniversary in 2026. It seems like every year I drop Knoebels' name as a park that could be announcing a new coaster, and every year they don't. They were pretty aggressive between 2009 and 2015. In those 6 years, they opened 4 coasters, their last one being Impulse in 2015. I kept looking at them and Holiday World and saying they are both long overdue, and Holiday World paid off in 2024 with good gravy. So, Knoebels, you're up, and I think on their 100th anniversary, they make it happen. I'm buying this. Knoebels is unlike any park I've been to, a campground that just blends in with a park, using physical ride tickets to get on the coasters, 2 of those coasters being built in-house. They went to 0 for their last coaster, so it makes you wonder, what could be next for them? You gotta think small but extreme. A Eurofighter would be great, but they got that covered with Impulse. They could really use a launch coaster, and something like Lynette or Knoebels would actually work. It would be different enough from Impulse. I could see a Gravity Group family wooden coaster here, that wouldn't be bad. I was thinking a small dive or a tilt coaster also, but that may be too similar to Iron Menace pretty close by. I think a Vekoma Top Gun would also be awesome here. Lots of options, we'll see what they do. Raya B. If closing, Green Lantern gets relocated to Six Flags St. Louis or Worlds of Fun. Green Lantern has been part of the whole King to Ka removal rumors, the coasters being set right next to each other, and the possibility that plot could be opened up for something huge. I talked about that last month in episode 34. That does beg the question, what would happen to Green Lantern if it got taken out? This was moved to Great Adventure in 2011, but it dates back all the way to 1997 at Kentucky Kingdom, opening as Chang. This is a pretty old coaster, but I think it has a lot of life left. I would be much more skeptical about Vortex at Carowinds moving, or either of the small B&M from California's Great America moving. But would Six Flags move this to one of their 2 Missouri parks? I don't think so, I'm selling this. Not to say it wouldn't be a great fit at either one. Worlds of Fun has tons of space for it, and St. Louis could definitely use a second B&M. There are just a lot of other options, and in my opinion, more realistic options. If I were Six Flags, I would send this to Six Flags America. They are all about relocated coasters. They thrive on them, and this would be the second relocated stand-up coaster they'd receive. The first one, Iron Wolf, turned Apocalypse, now Firebird, was converted to a floorless. It would be weird to market another B&M stand-up when they just converted theirs in 2019, but it's Six Flags America. They take whatever rolls down the hill. This park also isn't too far from Great Adventure, so it would save on transportation costs. It just makes sense. Lightning Boat. Art Engineering will become a major manufacturer in the future. Art Engineering is coming on strong, possibly the best up-and-coming manufacturer out there. They are all about the family coaster. They've manufactured 2 shooting dark ride coasters, and they've built 3 coasters for Lagoon, their first ever coaster being Bombora in 2011. They did Primordial, and that finally opened in 2023, but they are also responsible for Cannibal, one of the country's best coasters, and a total outlier when it comes to the rest of their catalog. Still, this does exist, and I'm buying more coasters like this. Cannibal opened almost 10 years ago, but for a company that only has 14 coasters in their catalog. 9 of them have opened since 2020. They have 3 coasters opening in 2025. We have seen what they can do. Cannibal has proven to be great over a long period of time. I don't see why they wouldn't want to expand their books, and I don't see why someone else wouldn't give them a shot. They do work all around the world, and that just increases their chances of landing a big fish. Aussie Coaster Reviewer. Siren's Curse opens before Top Thrill 2. I'm sure Cedar Point's goal is to have them both open for the park's grand opening, but I think they both have question marks. Top Thrill 2 is already built, obviously, but will it be operational? That's a wild card. Siren's Curse seems like it was a late announcement. Cedar Fair usually has a lot of work done before they even announce new coasters, and they're going to need to start working fast to get this ready for next May, especially since the winters in Northern Ohio can be some of the worst in the country. Hopefully, once it's built and the station is done, the footpaths are in, it'll open without any problems. However, this is kind of a prototype, the first time New Age Vekoma is trying to open a tilt. You gotta think it's different from the dinosaur that opened in Taiwan in 2002. So, late start on construction, possible kinks to work out. I'm selling Siren's Curse opening before Top Thrill 2. I think Top Thrill 2 is open with Cedar Point. If it can stay open, that's the question. Some people think Siren's Curse was announced because they knew Top Thrill 2 may not be ready for next year, but I think Zamperla does what it takes to get it open, and from there, it's anyone's guess. Luckily, that's not the question, just what will open first next year. Tyler Cool Guy 88. After Siren's Curse, Cedar Point's next coaster will be a GCI Woody. Nobody expected Siren's Curse. I don't even think Cedar Point expected it, but the good thing is, they didn't have to remove any rides to add it. This is their third new coaster in 3 consecutive years. That is, if you count Top Thrill 2 as a new coaster, and it seems like most people do. Maybe they cool it for a while, ride on what they have, and down the line, they take out an aging coaster with a big footprint. For this purpose, let's call it Gemini, and build something major there. That is the scenario where I see this happening, but I'm still gonna sell it. A GCI wooden coaster would take up so much space. When you think about the size and scale of what Cedar Point would want, you're asking for a lot of land on a peninsula, and even then, how marketable would it be? If you're going to use a big chunk of land and say goodbye to a legend, whether it be Cedar Creek Mine Ride or Gemini, you gotta make it something that's gonna make a splash. I think something like Ride to Happiness is right up Cedar Point's alley. That's something Kings Island could use also and could very well get beforehand. If that happens, then Cedar Point won't get one. A less realistic but equally awesome choice would be an S&S 4th Dimension. I'd love to see that at Cedar Point, and it would make an enormous splash. A wooden coaster, not as much. Madison Rusnock. Siren's Curse only lasts 5 to 10 years before being relocated. I know, we're harping on Cedar Point and Siren's Curse, but that's just the hot topic right now. And it's one of the most fascinating theme park stories of the year. The whole story about this being moved from Energylandia to Six Flags Mexico, then being rerouted here of all places. So many other parks could use a ride like this more than Cedar Point, but it seems like the new Six Flags chain is hedging their bets on Top Thrill 2, and want to offer something if that turns out to be a total disaster once again in 2025. Because of that theory, I'm buying this. Cedar Point does not need this coaster. It doesn't make a lot of sense to put this right next to Valraven, a pair of vertical drop loopers. It doesn't do a whole lot for this park. It's not like they took out another ride to make this happen. So, once they have the Top Thrill issue resolved, I definitely think this is on the move again. Look out for how much effort they put into the ride's area. How much theming it gets. Will it get repainted? The less effort it takes, the odds increase that it's a temporary ride. Maybe they give it to Michigan's Adventure, or Valley Fair, or Worlds of Fun, or St. Louis. Pretty much any park that doesn't have a dive coaster could really use it. And I would guess this would be heading to a so-called low-tier park. You know who those are. Dynamic Railways. After receiving its 3rd straight coaster, Cedar Point doesn't get another one for 7 more years. Last one for Cedar Point, I promise. They've had a very strange timeline over the last 10 years. Gatekeeper made sense. That was 6 years after Maverick, and a nice rebound coaster as the economy started to improve from the so-called Great Recession. Then, they get Valraven, a coaster some people think was meant for Canada's Wonderland, diverted to Cedar Point as a filler while they prep for Steel Vengeance in 2018. Then COVID comes along, and they don't get a new coaster till Wild Mouse in 2023. In the meantime, Top Thrill Dragster malfunctions and has to be addressed. Comes back but has a disaster season in 2024, and Siren's Curse comes out of nowhere. And anyone with a skeptical bone in their body knows there's a juicy backstory. What I'm trying to say is, it's impossible to nail down Cedar Point's timeline. We just talked about Siren's Curse, and if it'll even stay in the park for more than a few years. We don't know if Top Thrill 2 can be saved at this point. Will that be part of Cedar Point's history in the next few years? I'm selling this. Bottom line is, the longest gap between coasters in recent memory is 6 years. That was Maverick to Gatekeeper, and even though they stacked up with 3 coasters over 3 years, every disaster scenario only points them to getting something on a faster timeline. You're giving me 7 years, and even if everything works out and remains stable, I still think 7 years is too long to go without a new coaster for a park like Cedar Point. Braden Mooney, An Intamin family lift and launch coaster opens in America in the next 5 years. For those who don't know, a lift and launch is exactly what it sounds like. It has a lift and a launch. These are very dynamic coasters. They can play tricks with the riders, keeping them guessing, making a mild coaster more fun. One of these just opened in 2024, Gold Rush at the UK's Drayton Manor, and where it lacks in height and speed and intensity, it makes up for in fun. I'm buying this coming to America in the next 5 years. This has Dollywood and Silver Dollar City written all over it. Those parks have been going hard with family coasters as of late, but we know Dollywood is looking at an indoor attraction in 2026. Maybe a dark ride, or a dark ride coaster. I could see something like this being used for a dark ride coaster. It's not tall, it can be compact, and the way it goes forward, backward, and uses a launch, it could follow a storyline pretty easily. Silver Dollar City doesn't have a family coaster like this. Fire in the Hole is mostly a dark ride. This would fit in very well in that park. Maybe a regional park in the Six Flags or SeaWorld or Palace chain gets one. Maybe Disney or Universal. But I don't know why. It just seems right up the alley of those big-time Herschend parks. Mike Folkrod. Lakemont Park reopens Leap the Dips and Skyliner for 2025. Before the 2024 season, Lakemont said they would not be opening their rides all year. This was all due to financial problems and rising maintenance and insurance costs. And I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, but it's hard to believe they're raking in the money without the rides being open. This is kind of like a public park. You can walk in, play basketball, hit the batting cages. And they do host events here, car shows, music festivals. Maybe that's their plan to refill their coffers, repair the rides, and reopen. We also know they sold off their kids coaster, Lil Leaper. Honestly, this doesn't sound like a one-year operation. I'm selling this. I'm not confident this park will ever reopen their rides, let alone do it in 2025. We'll see if we get any updates in the winter, if we see any work being done on the coasters, and eventually if we see the park trying to sell Skyliner and even possibly Leap the Dips. There's a lot of noise for Knoebels to come in and rescue it, and it might actually come down to that in the next couple years. Jeffrey Petrie. With the 25-year B&M shelf life approaching, Raging Bull will get a retrack in the next 5 years. First, I don't know about the 25-year B&M shelf life. We've seen plenty of B&Ms hit the 30-year mark at this point. All those Bat clones, Raptor, Kumba. There's also a bunch of B&Ms that were built before 1999 that don't seem to be in danger. But let's put all that aside for now. Not all B&Ms are the same. They're all in different climates. They all have different trains that are heavier or lighter. They put different stress on the track. Some have more cycles per year than others. Some are big and some are small. Raging Bull is a big one. It seats 36 passengers, has a lot of track, a lot of speed, and despite being 25 years old, it's one of the most popular rides in the park. I would not be surprised if, over the next 5 years, we see some strategic retracking. The ride doesn't seem rough, at least not as of my ride in 2023. I've ridden a bunch of other B&Ms that have a bad rattle, and this isn't it. I'm gonna sell this. The coaster is not in danger. I think if it did come down to it, Six Flags would opt to retrack it instead of tear it down, giving it the Hulk or Nemesis treatment. I just don't think it'll get to that point by the end of 2029. That's a wrap on episode 35. Let me know what you think of any of these topics, if you agree or disagree, and why. Also, don't forget, if you want your idea considered for the next video, leave it in the comments below, starting with buy or sell. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I have a playlist with all the buy or sell episodes. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.